Good day, everybody. Today we have a great entrepreneur as our guest, Jay Samit, and we visited our library. We had preliminary discussions about such institution, social institution as library, about technological trends, about how to disrupt yourself, and maybe your impression, what you have seen today, what you would like to tell us, and maybe about your purpose. About book.
Well, thank you for taking the time and giving me the tour. What you recognize is that in a time of social upheaval, the role of the library is going to change, and disruption isn't about what happens to you, it's about how you respond to what happens to you. So you're taking the initiative of how can the library help society cope with this rapid age of change, when we'll see half of the jobs disappear, we'll see more refugees than after World War II, we'll see the climate impacting, and at the same time we'll see technology make our lives better than we could imagine. Energy will become virtually free, knowledge will be brought to us as opposed to us having to search for it, and how will we utilize those tools to enhance our culture? And that is your challenge as we get into the next decade.
How we can prepare ourselves to those challenges? You have written many books, many
from an institution standpoint, the way to predict the future is to hang out with those people that are coding it. So start talking to some of the global technology companies so that they can give you a roadmap of how people will be using technology different. And then you can see it from the lens of an institution. How can you make that change positive? How can you help people deal with the discomfort of change? All great societies came about because of change.
Change management.
The big difference is the speed at which we change. Today it's faster than a Darwinian rate, faster than Darwin and evolution. We're seeing, we'll have 11 billion people on the planet very quickly. We're going to see food costs skyrocket. And we're going to see most manual labor jobs disappear. So how can an institution help prepare society, help to retrain people? And what you're going to see of where my vision and Disrupt You and what you do come together is the only way to thrive in the 21st century is to commit to lifelong learning. I often tell people, if I was your doctor and I told you I hadn't read anything since I got out of medical school 30 years ago, would you come to me as your doctor? No. We understand that that's change. So why should your employer employ you? If your skills don't match today? Why should multinational corporations come to do business here if there's other countries where the skill sets are different? Now the advantage now is we're all carrying around a tool that connects us to 6 billion people. We all have access to all the world's knowledge, but it takes an institution such as yours to provide context to that knowledge, to spark that creativity for people to solve problems. Because that's all that entrepreneurism is solving problems.
I like your way of positive thinking in general. I'm very impressed with jobs you have done. But what about global crisis landscape, about technological impact of crisis? I used to work for UNESCO, and somebody who was in the past just hacker, he has told internet is like a weapon of mass destruction because he can reach with negative content anybody.
So every new technology was embraced with a negative.
Yeah.
The Luddites didn't like the mills that could make cloth quicker. The first things of electricity, people were terrified. the first cars, doctors said the human body would fall apart if it went 15 kilos per hour. So there's a natural aversion, a natural fear to change. But technology has also allowed 2% of the population to feed the entire population. We have the lowest levels of poverty globally ever. So technology has made that possible. And we're now facing new crises, the temperature changing, the climate changing, crops not growing where they would grow. And again, it'll be technology that solves those problems. So if you want to be successful in life, you have to have problems. Because that's where success comes from. It's from saying, I have a problem. I mean, my classic example was that there were 2 young guys in Tel Aviv stuck in traffic. Not the biggest city in the world, but every city has traffic. And it dawned on them, the phone company knows where their phone is. So if the phone company tells you to go left and me to go right, there's no traffic. And that was the genesis of Waze. So you don't have to be a computer coder. You've written as much code in your life as Steve Jobs. 0. But you can see where there's a problem. And now we're interconnected. And we can find that knowledge in the library or through the global knowledge set to come up with new solutions.
Okay, some keywords: cloud computing, quantum computing, cybersecurity, human-computer interaction, web science, digital humanities. Well, it's about managing of digital complexity. Are we managing digital complexity now?
So the real question is, do you want to be managed by the technology, or do you want to manage the technology?
Very good translation.
Right? So I was the child of the TV generation, where parents said, oh, you're spending too much time in front of the TV. Look what the TV's doing to young people. TV's the worst thing. But the TV also showed me what the rest of the world looked like. It taught me history. It took me places in the future that I could never experience. The same way that Jules Verne writing a science fiction book 100 years ago. It's the same thing today. Artificial intelligence has this, scary, Terminator type viewpoint. That use of it is decades away. In the near term, it's about solving some real existential crises. Like, can we get food from the farm to the table quicker? Can we simplify supply chains globally? 40% of the food that we grow goes to waste. Never makes it to a person. And yet we still have people that are hungry. That can be solved with technology.
You mentioned one more word, book. We have book. What about reading, about books? How you can see place of reading, place of books in this technological society?
So it pains me as an American to tell you that the majority of college graduates in the United States never read another book.
Why?
Why? We don't have enough time for that answer.
Yeah.
But our educational system failed the students in the one key thing that every child starts with. Every child is born with a thirst for knowledge. They want to do something. They want to learn to walk. They want to learn to talk.
Action.
We are naturally inquisitive. And somehow, poor educational systems smack that out of people. Because most of what we teach people was how to be a factory worker. How to have enough reading skill to do this job, but not to question why. Why would anybody want to have a job to make somebody else rich when they could start their own business, when they could change the world? And so I spend my time traveling the world now, showing people how easy it is. Every 48 hours, a new self-made billionaire happens. It's amazing. And they're getting younger and younger in their 20s because we're one interconnected market. You put something up on the internet, you can be a billionaire in your first week. But solving problems isn't just about making money. The same skill sets can make energy cheaper, can make healthcare better, can make food healthier, and can make the quality of life worth living.
Okay, you have mentioned some skills. Let's say, can you describe several competencies, critical competencies, which are important in this disruptive area?
Learning how to learn.
Yeah.
So the old era of memorizing facts, in some cultures, in some countries still, the young child that can memorize the whole Quran and say it verbatim is considered a genius. Now that's an amazing skill, but we now can get any fact here. What we can't get from here is how to connect the dots of the facts. How do we solve problems? How do we identify problems? How do we get out of our mindset of that's the way it's done, that's the way it's always been? And that's the role of educational institutions, to preserve the parts of culture that we love, but not as dead people and dates. What were the principles that they did? And the most amazing thing when you bring history forward is that every great change in the history of mankind was done by stubborn people. People that didn't take no for an answer. And people that weren't afraid of failing. And that's probably the one cultural advantage that Americans have. As a country, there's no shame in failing. Look at who we made president. So failing is how you learn what doesn't work. So you never lose. You either win or gain knowledge. And what I talk about in the book, and so many of my friends have become billionaires starting companies like you would know, the Microsofts of the world. Most of them started the business to do something over here that didn't work. And slowly it changed. And I'll give you my favorite example. 10 years ago, video was coming on the internet. People were already doing computer dating before there was just swiping on Tinder. And you go on a website, but it was still pictures. And so 3 guys sat down and said, we're going to make a dating site with videos. You can hear the people talk, their personality. We're going to make millions. It was called Tune In Hookup. And they built this beautiful site. And there was a problem. No one wanted to date the losers who put their videos on the site. So they engineered it right, they did everything right, but here's the advantage of a business in the 21st century. They didn't give up. They looked at the data, and the data said no one wanted to date this guy, but every woman wanted to show all her friends how bad the dating possibilities are. So they would share the videos. So after 1 year, they changed the name of Tune and Hookup to YouTube. And they all became billionaires without a penny in revenue.
So in general, we are speaking about data-driven business, data-driven research.
We live in a data-driven world.
Yeah.
Right?
And
there is no life without data.
Yeah.
And so much of business and so much of politics and so much of society was driven by opinions. You think it should be this way, I think it should be that way. That leads to conflict.
Interpretations.
But now, you can have data to decide these things. AI is really a fancy word of saying, looking at the most data. If you were going to a doctor and got an MRI, and they wanted to know if you had cancer, in that doctor's career, maybe he saw 1,000 patients. But every scan of a person has been fed into IBM's system, and it instantly knows if it's cancer or not. No human error. 250,000 people die in car accidents every year. Self-driving cars are much, much safer. So we're using data to solve problems that couldn't be solved before. And there's so many problems left to solve. We don't run out of problems.
Fine. Can we come closer to the content of this beautiful book?
Sure. So the reason I wrote Disrupt You is I'm not special, I'm not smart, I'm not different than anybody watching this.
You are just normal.
I'm just normal, or maybe even below normal. I'm dyslexic. So a dyslexic who writes a book. But one day I woke up after being in tech and I realized all of my friends had become names that you all know, that built all these companies that we started. And I knew these people before they were big and famous. They're not that special either. So what was it that they were doing? How did they see the world differently? And could this be taught? So I was teaching how to build a high-tech startup at the largest engineering school in the United States. Two of my students did $150 million the first year. And I saw that you could teach anybody because you only need two things to succeed. Insight, which I can teach you how to get insight and data, and perseverance. I can't teach that. But if you have that hunger, that's why I wrote the book. I didn't write the book to make money. I wrote the book to help the next generation because there's no longer gatekeepers blocking access to markets. There's no borders. There's no borders to getting capital. You don't have to go to a bank. There's crowdfunding, there's cryptocurrency, there's a million ways. So how do you do this? How do you thrive in this era? And I've heard from readers in over 100 countries. They could be people that lost their job in their 50s. They could be 18-year-olds that decided college wasn't for them. And they've each found their way that it can be done. And my job is just to make the journey a little easier.
Yes, very impressive, very impressive.
So I'm honored and thrilled that it's in Lithuanian. I apologize, I don't speak Lithuanian.
It's book in Lithuanian.
The book's in Lithuanian, and the stories are universal truths. And the joy of writing a book in the 21st century, to tell this to a librarian, is you get to hear from your readers. Readers feel so inspired that they email you. And they're like love letters. I wake up every day and read them, and it just makes me want to work harder and fly more miles. We're taping this in middle of February. This is the 9th country I've been to and the 4th continent since January 1st. So I'm on a mission to help as many people for a selfish reason.
And this book is also in Chinese, Portuguese?
In Chinese, it was #1 in Korean, it was in Vietnamese, it's in Thai, it's in a lot of languages. And the selfish reason is, everybody that solves a problem, who are they solving the problems for? You and me and everybody else. So if I can help people make our world better, we all benefit. We can solve the climate crisis. We can solve inequality. We can prolong our lives with quality. Or we can watch cats playing on the piano, you know.
It's very important.
It's your choice how you use your time. But I'm a firm believer that you don't get to come back. You got one shot. That's my belief. If you believe in reincarnation, great. You've got, take your time. And you don't get to live forever. But what you create in your lifetime can. This institution is a monument to those people that made a difference. Their thoughts live long after they do. Their impact. We know what Aristotle taught. We still learn from those truths. So why wouldn't you want to change the world? The only person that's stopping you is you.
So this book, in general, is about making the difference, yes?
Yeah. It's, don't you want to be happy? I mean, if I ask you one question to the people watching it is, are you living life or just paying bills until you die? And if you're afraid to try something, the biggest risk you can take in life is not taking a risk.
Yeah. Okay.
Because if you go visit people in an old age home, ask them their biggest regret anywhere in the world. And it won't be, I tried this and failed. It'll be, I failed to try. I was afraid to be a musician. I was afraid to do this. Because life's about living, not being fearful.
Yeah.
That's the message.
And you and your book is about business unusual in general.
So the book's in 3 parts. And I knew that if you told people how to make millions of dollars, they'd pick up the book. But that isn't the real purpose of the book. The first thing you have to do, everybody thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing themselves. So the first thing is to learn how to disrupt yourself, how to change those assumptions, that voice in your head that tells you you can't, you're bad at math, you're stupid, you're whatever it is, okay? Then I break down the whole value chain of business from a personal standpoint. And once you see that you can change you, that you're malleable, you realize changing everything else in life is easy. And then the last part of the book, once I've got you hooked, is now that you've learned how to change yourself or change business, once you take care of enough money for yourself, take the same principles to solve for humanity.
It was my last question, but you answered already. What a technologist can do for humanities. Can you expand it?
Yeah. We've spent 100 years raising the temperature of this planet. The icebergs are melting. If it gets up 4 more degrees, mammals don't live. The world's not going to stop. Humans will stop. To me, this should be front page news every day, everywhere. But it's much like any other problem. You don't care about the flood until your house is flooded, and then it's too late. So I'm working on a robot right now for farmers, so you don't have to till the soil. 25% of the CO2 in the air is from farming. Just switching how we farm will solve the whole crisis. You can still drive your cars, fly your planes. It's that easy. And at the same time, by using a robot to kill weeds, we're not using poisons. So the poison doesn't go into us, it doesn't go in the stream. In my lifetime, 80% of the animals on the planet have disappeared. And no one's freaking out. You know, half of the birds in North America gone. We're next. So I'm optimistic. Man has made horrible mistakes over the centuries, and we've survived. And we have the ingenuity. And what's great is that the people right now that have benefited the most from technology understand these issues. And instead of trying to build bigger houses or bigger toys, they're solving these problems. And I find that absolutely inspirational.
So Jay, thank you for coming to our library, to our country at the right time. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, and I'm honored that my book will be here in this institution.
Thank you.